chat. Welcome into a long overdue episode of the Crimson Corner. As always, I am your host and Utah Utes insider, Michelle Bodkin, and I have to say I'm very excited about this week's episode. As most of you crazy Utah football fans are probably aware of, this week's matchup against Cal will serve as the annual Ute Proud game, which has become a fan favorite and also a favorite of mine since its inception in 2016. This episode's goal is to help make this year's Ute Proud game more enriching for you, the fan, by diving into the history, culture, current needs, and relationship between the University of Utah and the Ute Tribe from which they have pulled their nickname. To do that properly and respectfully, I am very pleased to welcome in my guest, whom I met over the summer while helping with the Athletes for Life football camp that was held by former Utah athletes on the Uinta-Ore Ute Reservation, Cameron Cuch. Cam, before we dive in, please introduce yourself and explain your role as a Ute Tribe member and the relationship you have with the University of Utah.
Hi, Michelle. Well, thank you for having me. I am an enrolled member of the Ute Indian Tribe. I was born and raised out here on the Uinta-Ore Indian Reservation, and I am a alumni of the university, a graduate alumni. I got my master's degree there in 1999, and I served my tribe in tribal government as the education director from 2001 to 2005. And during that time, it's said that the university has always had the tribe's support dating back to 1972, but we didn't have a formal agreement in place. And when I was director, I worked with our tribal leadership to kind of start a relationship, more formal relationship. And so we were able to enter into the first memorandum of agreement back in 2003. The other thing that I'm involved in with the university right now is I currently serve as chair of the President's National Advisory Council, the NAC. And that's a group of approximately 130 individuals who work closely with the university's leadership and administration to improve relationships between the U and its constituencies throughout the state and beyond. And so, I get to work with a lot of real influential Utahns, alumni, friends of the university, and people like Kem Gardner, Spencer Eccles, Heather Collard, Catherine Garf, Gail Miller, Charles Mumford, the owner of the Rockies, who's an alumni, Keith Van Horn, former Utes basketball great. So that's one of the things that I'm involved in currently.
Now, something I want fans to kind of know and understand is that finding a lot of meaningful information on the internet about the Ute Tribe is actually pretty difficult outside of history about land treaty disagreements. Obviously, there is so much more to this group of people, which is why Cam and I spent a good 45 minutes to an hour talking off the record so I could get a feel for who the Utes are, what they believe in, why the tribe exists, and just what is important to discuss, because there is a lot of ground to cover. So I think always a great place to start with these kinds of conversations is just the overarching history of who the Ute tribe is at their core, where they originated from, and how did this tribe come to be?
Well, most tribes have, including ours, a creation story. And without sort of telling that story, basically our people were placed in the mountains so that we could be close to the Creator. And we were told by him that we would never be defeated. So we have a creation story. We are part of the Utah Aztecan Shoshonean people. We're related to, the tribes like the Shoshone, the Comanche, the Paiute, Goshute, several California tribes. But our people, the Utes, we lived in the mountains of Utah and Colorado. There were 12 bands of Utes historically, and we lived from Salt Lake Valley, Provo Valley in particular, all the way to the mountains of Colorado. when we acquired the horse, and we are known to be one of the early tribes to acquire the horse from the Spanish. We extended our territories even beyond our hunting and trading into the plains, and our people fought tenaciously to defend our land. And today we have three Ute Tribe tribal groups. Our tribe, the Uinta and Ouray Utes, we're located in northeastern Utah. Our reservation is about 4.5 million acres of original jurisdiction, where we still assert rights over our members and hunting and fishing rights. We also have about 1.3 million acres of tribal trust lands. The tribe has tremendous natural resources, oil and gas resources, timber, water, just some real beautiful land out here. But and then we have our sister tribes, the Southern Ute Tribe down in southwest Colorado, and the Ute Mountain Ute Tribe in southwest Colorado as well. And then there's a small band of Utes, the White Mesa Utes, down in southern Utah. So that's sort of what's remains of our Ute people.
Now, I'm curious, what does Ute mean or translate to in the Ute language?
Yeah, it's kind of a Spanish term that came about, but the way we call ourselves is Nooch or Nuchu, the people. That's how our language describes ourselves.
Interesting. And so then explain tribe structure, because I think a lot of people don't necessarily realize it's set up like a government. It's not just a random assortment of people. Everybody kind of has a job. Everybody has something that they do, and it is very structurally organized.
Today, but historically, as I mentioned, we had bands of Utes that lived throughout the Rockies, and culturally, our people are very diverse. A lot of our ways were held within family groups. The bands, had selective leadership. We never had, a full-time chief or leader. We had, lots of leaders depending on the issue at hand. So, if it was going to war, we had war leaders. If it was hunting parties, we had hunting leaders. If it was, health issues or things that needed healing, we had, traditional spiritual people, and after those issues were sort of dealt with, everybody would kind of go back to society. So, we didn't really have structured, forms of government until later, when we came to reservations and had to adopt constitutions and kind of operate similar to the federal government. So the way our tribe is structured today is, we had three bands of Utes. The Uinta band, which is kind of a culmination of all the Utah bands, a consolidation, I should say, of all the Utah bands. We have the Uncompahgre Utes, who, along with the White River Utes, were forcibly removed from Colorado into Utah, and so we share a reservation. And so under our Constitution, the three bands are all represented by 6 members, business committee, 2 members from each band, elections every 4 years, staggered elections. So every 2 years we have tribal elections for 3 of the seats, 1 from each band. And that's how we're structured. As a government, we're a government without a tax base. And so the way we fund tribal government core services is through the development of our natural resources, our oil and gas resources, our timber, our leases on tribal lands, grazing rights, those kinds of things. We also have several enterprises on our reservation and investments. The tribe is pretty progressive in terms of, diversifying and trying to, create financial sovereignty for the members today and into the future.
You touched on this a little bit in your last answer, but I felt like as we were having our discussion, one of the more interesting revelations you brought up was that there is extreme diversity throughout each tribe and band, and it's due to how each individual family has kind of interpreted the Ute culture and applied it into their own lives. Explain that a little bit more.
Sure. Well, within our language too, I mean, the bands have different ways of speaking within our families or cultural, structures. We have, there are different families do things different. So when it comes to birth rituals, or when we have people pass on, we have certain things we do. Those are held within families, and so our culture is not, and as well as our history is really held within our families. And so we have our own family histories. We have our own cultural ways of doing things. There's some things that are very similar that we do. Some of our cultural ways are bear dance, which we'll talk a little bit about as we talk about what we'll see on Saturday. There are things like that that are held in common. But even within the bands and the different reservations, there's differing stories that all sort of come and match back up. So it's unique.
Yeah, it sounds very unique. And like I said, to me, that was just incredibly fascinating, that the diversity really comes through the family units within the tribe. I think that's incredibly interesting. Now, getting more into the tie-in with college athletics in the Ute tribe, there were a couple of dates that were really important for changing the relationship between the Utes and the University of Utah for the better. And that started in 2003 and kind of ran through about 2007, as I understand it. Explain what happened, how it changed the dynamics of the relationship, and what the NCAA's role was in the matter.
Well, the agreement that I was able to help negotiate and put in place was in 2003, and that really contemplated, we always University of Utah was using the Ute name, but there really wasn't a relationship. There wasn't there really wasn't a lot of interaction, and we were sending, no more than a handful of students to the U at any given time. I felt there should have been a relationship, and that we should be finding resources to, support our students while they're there, to work together on research projects. The tribe certainly has needs. There's opportunities for research and development, and just overall education and respect for the name. And so the university had done some things. They had their research park, recognized tribal names, and that was great and all. But we felt like we needed to have a closer relationship. So that agreement sort of started that process, but it really didn't take off. And then another thing that happened was in 2005, the NCAA came down with some new rules that said that universities and colleges that use Native American mascots or logos couldn't use those postseason play. And the University of Utah was getting ready to go into the national basketball tournaments and so forth, and they were able to use that agreement, waive that agreement, and say, hey, we've got the permission of the tribe. And that really kind of saved the day in terms of the use of the Ute name in postseason play. The agreement, I think, was renewed in around 2014, and again in 2020. But it wasn't until recent leadership at the university, kind of beginning with David Pershing, who was president at the time, and later Ruth Watkins, that they really started to commit university resources to help build a relationship, to educate about the tribe, If you go to the University of Utah games, there's a lot of respect, a lot of educational information that's been put out. So fans aren't out there being disrespectful or wearing, things that might be offensive to the tribe and its members. In addition, they've hired people to help students be successful when they do show up to the university to attend school. They've hired people to go out and do outreach on the reservation. We have several enrichment programs where students are able to come visit the university at an early age and kind of get at an early age influenced into what's possible. And the university folks come out to the reservation and participate in a lot of our events. We have a big fundraiser out here for college scholarships that the university comes out and plays in that golf tournament. They come out to our bear dance ceremonies and things like that. So we've really over the years started working more closely and have found scholarship resources, donors, people that have a genuine interest in supporting the tribe. They've done some really nice things that have made attending the university for our students, that have helped them be successful.
Now, leadership is also a big factor in this story. And again, you kind of briefly brought that up. How did that turnover on both sides help push the relationship forward between the university and the Utes?
I think really just getting together and talking about the needs, talking about how they can, better educate people on the Ute people, the use of the name. Access to education, allowing, they created an advisory board. So there's representatives from the university administration, as well as the Ute Tribe leadership, the business committee, the education director, some of the tribal departments that work a lot with our kids, our recreation department. They're able to, they meet quite regularly to discuss, initiatives and things that they can do together to grow the relationship. And then I mentioned academic support too. The university really does a lot to support those students once they're there. They've got, the American Indian Resource Center, and they have advisors there to help students be successful when they make it to college.
I'm going to jump a little off script here because I think it's a good place to bring it up. You actually sent me a really interesting video, a reel on Instagram about two Native Americans talking about what is and isn't offensive to them. And I feel like that's such a hot topic of debate. Obviously, we saw a team like the Redskins change their name from the Redskins to the Washington Commanders in an attempt to be more politically correct, I suppose. But interestingly enough, it turns out that it actually was more offensive that the name was changed. Talk about why there's such a confusion between people and for obviously you can't speak for everybody, right? But as a general rule of thumb, what does constitute as being offensive versus I guess honorary in cases where you're using like a native word or nickname for a team?
Yeah, well, I mentioned earlier just how diverse our Ute people are. We have different ways of viewing the world, different ways of culturally native people across the country. Amongst the over 557 some odd federally recognized tribes, all have different views on this. But what I think is really important is that the tribal nations themselves, whenever you have a tribal nation that is in support of something, like the Ute Tribe is with the University of Utah. We're talking two sovereigns. We're talking a state institution of higher education and a federally recognized Indian tribal nation coming together to form a formal agreement where there's mutual benefit. That I think is key. The Washington Redskins. There's differing views on that name. The Cleveland Indians, they changed the name to the Guardians. But if you look at the history, there were at one time some of the early players who played for the Cleveland baseball program were Native Americans, and they were honoring them by using that name. Now the mascot, may have been offensive to some, but I've also seen young kids wearing that old mascot, Chief Wahoo, on their ball caps. So I mean, there's just so many views on it. But the reason I think it's important for there to be there, for people not to take so much offense is because I think that and we could look at the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. We could look at the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, you don't have Irish people or Norwegian people getting upset about that. I mean, to me, I feel like if we just eliminate all those, names, people are going to be quick to forget that our people were here, that we were here first. And, some of the things that, culturally, that may be a part of, the use of native, names and logos, like our drum and feather, get lost. And soon people forget, how our state was named after our tribe, who our tribe is. I mean, we're still educating people on who we are. I've lived on the East Coast, and, people back there, they don't even know that we still exist. They still ask silly questions like, did you live in a teepee on a reservation? I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I first experienced when I moved away from Utah. But I think the important thing is that the tribe and the entity itself, be it a university or a professional sports program, have a relationship with tribes. And that's been done with University of Utah. It's been done with Central Michigan, the Chippewa. They have great relationships with the Chippewa nations in that region. And then the Florida State Seminoles too. They've had a long relationship with the Seminole tribal nation, Florida State, and the tribe there. And what's cool about that is, a lot of people don't realize how successful some of these tribes are across our country. They're very successful in terms of economic development. Seminole tribe, for example, they own, casinos and resorts and golf courses, and they own the Hard Rock Cafe name. I mean, they're very successful, and so they I believe use that as a marketing opportunity, that relationship with the tribe. And I'd like to see more of that with our tribe too, because we have things that we do as far as economic development as well that I think should be showcased in some way. So yeah, that's kind of how I look at it.
And then, I mean, obviously, like all relationships, there's always room for improvement and growth, no matter how well it is going. Talk about some of the positive changes you've seen, and then some of the things that could still be addressed and improved upon.
Yeah, well, there's the positive things kind of begin with education, just educating the university students, the community, the alumni, the state, everyone that's, interacts with the University of Utah. I think there's wonderful opportunities to educate people about who our people are, that we still exist, and that we're still facing challenges today. Our people are still fighting for our lands, our water rights, our right to develop our mineral resources. There's a lot of challenges we face. We have, young people who aren't achieving at the level we'd like to see them achieve. We still have, things in our community that we'd like to improve upon, but we also want them to know about, the good things that are happening, the economic development that takes place on our reservation, the investment that takes place. There's a lot of jobs just in the oil and gas industry on our reservation that take place. The tribe is a major driver of the economy here in our state, in the eastern part of the state, and that's something that people need to know about.
Now, one area where this relationship has truly blossomed is with the Ute Proud game, where the Ute Tribe comes and performs one of their tribal dances and gives some explanations of their culture. The other day when we were chatting, you brought up last year's dance, the bear dance, and the significance of it to the Utes. Go ahead and explain here just some of the nuances of the movements fans will see throughout whatever dance the tribe chooses to perform on Saturday.
Sure. The tribe has, been practicing. It'll be a lot of our young people, some of our elders will come out. I think there's over 100 people that will be performing, and they'll be doing some of the dances that come from the powwow tradition. There's a lot of dance styles that a lot of tribes have adopted. Some of the traditional forms, traditional war dance, traditional women's dance are things that are ancestral to our tribe. But there's a couple other styles like fancy dance where they have the feathers, really colorful feathers, and do lots of spinning. The women will wear shawls and will dance almost like a butterfly kind of floating. There's a jingle dance, which originates from the Ojibwe people. You'll see some of those styles that are part of the performance, but you're also going to see a demonstration of what is a dance that is original to the Ute people. And that has a story to it, a history to it, where historically our people, we lived off the land and we were a strong people. If you've lived in these mountains, you know that you've got to work hard every day or you won't survive. So, our people were always prepared for winter. Winters were sometimes hard. When springtime came, it came time for gathering and for hunting. And in this particular story, this warrior goes out on his own to hunt for his family, his people, and he comes into contact with a bear, and he draws his bow originally, but the bear communicates with him almost like telepathically. Our people always talk about how historically our people were really close with nature, and that we used to be able to communicate with nature. And so the story goes that this bear tells this young warrior to take this dance back to his people and to celebrate this dance every spring, to celebrate the new year, to celebrate renewal, to celebrate birth, to celebrate life and abundance. And so our people have been doing that for hundreds of years. And so historically, what would happen is, and they would do it every spring. And different bands would come and stay and for days, and they would do this dance, and they would feast and eat and often meet their partners. There's a few details to it, but it's a really pretty dance. And the men line up on one side, the women on the other, and they have they don't use a drum. They use a they use kind of a flat sort of surface that, and they call it a rasp. It's got these notches in it and a bone, and that makes the sound. And the songs they sound a lot like the bear when the bear sounds, but they're almost like bear chants. And so you'll notice that about the song. And they'll take a couple of steps back and forth, all keeping a straight line. And then they have what's called the cat man, where he'll divide them he'll divide the dancers, and the way it works is that the women get to choose who they dance with. And historically, whenever this dance would take place, all the bands would come together, and the women would choose their partner. And if a woman chose your husband or your boyfriend, you had to let them dance. There's nothing you could do about it. um, and so and so you'll see when they split them up, how they how they dance in unison. And it's a really pretty dance. It's very colorful, and it's something our people have been doing for, like I said, hundreds of years.
Now, I think what's also kind of cool is some of the kids that participated in the Athletes for Life camp on the res over the summer with the former Utah athletes will also be performing on Saturday in the halftime dance this year, in a game that obviously features current Utah athletes. Talk about the importance of opportunities for these kids to be around high achieving individuals and how it builds much needed confidence for them going out in the world and finding their own why.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to see what's possible. I think exposure is one of the most important things, and I think expectations are also important too. I think about growing up and how, before I even knew what college was, I knew I was going, and I think we're seeing more and more of our people expect that of their kids. It's more accepted, that their children go on to college or trade school, and better their lives. And there's not the mistrust that there used to be, historically. But just like the camp we did this past summer, Athletes for Life, it was great to get those kids out with former players and existing players, and give them exposure. When I played football in high school, I did it in Massachusetts, and I played Little League on the reservation. But when I returned, a lot of the kids I played Little League with, just like they never played high school football. So I don't know why, but today we're seeing more and more of our young people playing at the high school level. And we've had a lot of talented kids over the years. And I think if we give them those opportunities and we give them exposure, they can see what's possible, and reach for those things, set goals, and start reaching for them.
Absolutely. I mean, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the drum and feather logo. It's sometimes a very polarizing topic, but based off of conversations I've had with you and a few others on the reservation, it feels like it's been unnecessarily complicated out of fear or not fully understanding what it means for the tribe. What do you think of that logo? And what would the future for it be in an ideal world?
As far as the logo, I mean, I don't find any offense to it at all. It's a drum. It's got the block U in the center. The drum doesn't look like one of our traditional drums. It almost looks like one of the band drums. And the feathers hanging off the side. I'll just look like eagle feathers, but they're uh, the drum and eagle feathers to our people are very sacred. The drum, represents the heartbeat of life. Our songs are sung with the drum. There's a real spirit to it. Eagle feathers, the eagle is very sacred to our people. We believe that God manifests himself through his creation, and the eagle is one of the special ones that we believe brings blessings and healing. And so the feathers are, when you have them, if you earn one or given one, it's an important honor to receive. And so we hold those things with great respect. And so the logo, like I said, the drum almost looks like a band drum, and the university now has the mascot swoop. So maybe they're red tail hawk tail feathers. I don't know, but I think most of our people don't view it in any way. We there's a tribal element to it for sure, but I don't know why people would take offense to it. And I think if the University of Utah and the Ute Tribe have a relationship and an agreement to support its use, I don't know why anyone would question that, because you're talking, again, two sovereign groups, sovereign nation, agreeing to that. Mm-hmm. And so even our tribal logo, our the official seal of the Ute Indian tribe has an eagle on it, has tail feathers, and some may say, well, that's because you're an Indian tribe, you can do that. But our people have given permission for that. We don't see anything that's offensive there. People aren't using it in a negative way, and I just love seeing it. I love seeing it on the side of the team's helmets. I think I shared with you. I don't like when they wear the block U on the side of the helmet. I want the drum and feather, because we win. We always win. Yeah. When we have that. We've gone to like 2 Rose Bowl games and we've put the block U's on the side of the helmets and have lost. And I'm just like, sometimes you have to be who you are. You need to stick with your identity and know that, very similar to the tribe's creation story, we're from the mountains and we will not be defeated. So, prepare for battle, because that's, these other schools, when they see that, that's what they respect, about University of Utah.
I love that. I love that comparison, actually. That was pretty good. You did briefly touch on this as well, but I loved this topic that came up in our discussion offline, is the relationship between the Seminole tribe and Florida State. I feel like no one questions what a Seminole is. They might have a very rudimentary understanding of what a Seminole is, but it doesn't seem to confuse the general public the way the Utes do. What elements do you think the Utes and the University of Utah can take from that relationship and apply to their own in order to spread more general knowledge of who and what a Ute is?
Well, they've just got to celebrate it more. They've got to, not hide from it. You're either proud of it or you're not. And sometimes I wonder whether the university really, I think the sports program do, but I wonder if the university as a whole, the administration, really gets behind the name. I know the alumni do. Mm-hmm. And I know that, lots of people across the state really value that name and the relationship. At Florida State, they embrace it. They not only do they, use the name, but they also use cultural elements. This weekend there's some cultural designs that will be on the helmets of the Ute players, of the Utah Utes players, football players this weekend. Those ought to be permanent on their uniforms. If you look at the Seminoles, they've got those tribal designs on their uniforms. And it's intimidating, and it's beautiful too. And for this game, the design they have on the helmet, I'd love to see it on the uniform as well. At least for this game, the Ute Proud game they have every year. We just need to embrace it. We need to fully get behind it, grow the relationship. I'd like to see our tribe use it as a marketing opportunity to market itself. I'd like to see our Ute tribal seal somewhere in the stadium, so that people know that who the Utes are. I'd love to see, we've got the big jumbo screens. I'd love to see, and they do it from time to time, just a short video on who we are. Not just the cultural aspect, but also the economic impact our tribe has on this state. I think it's important for people to know that.
As a member of the Ute tribe, what does it mean to you to see these high-level athletes take so much pride in wearing your logo and representing your name to a greater audience and continuing to rep it years after they're done playing?
I just think there's a tremendous amount of respect. I think the athletics department, its coaches have all embraced it. And, they've from time to time invite some of the tribal people to come and speak about the name, about our history, so that, especially, their incoming freshman players, so that they learn from when they get here, what it's all about. I've been invited to a few of those where I've come out and talked to the players, given a short, history of who we are, why there's, great strength in being a Ute. Um, so, I think, just the athletics department, the way they've embraced it has made it really good for players. And I think they've, a lot of the former players. I mean, they take great pride in it. They really do. And, I think it's a good thing.
This is a question I love asking the athletes. What does it mean to be Ute proud?
I struggle a little bit with the word pride. We always hear pride before the fall. um, I know that's a marketing thing that they've come up with, and our people, I think our people have a lot of respect and appreciation for the blessings we have. We know that Father God, the Creator, has blessed us as Ute people, and He's put us in these mountains, and we've survived through many difficulties, and are still here and remain. For me, I'd love to see them change that from Ute Proud to just Ute Nation. Because I think people being able to say, "Hey, I'm a part of the nation. I'm a part of Ute Nation. I'm a part of this family. I'm a part of this culture. I'm a part of this way of life. I will never be defeated." I think that's, more powerful than just going out there and being prideful. I really would love to see it become the Ute Nation.
Interesting. And then finally, Cam, if people are interested in learning more or wanting to be an ally and help continue to build the relationship, where can they get more information, or where can they get started in getting involved?
Sometimes you just got to get out and do it. Hank Mandaka, our good friend, helped form this organization called Athletes for Life, where he brought about a lot of former athletes, University of Utah football players, some who became professional football players, some existing professional football players from, who played for the Utes, have brought them out to reservations to work with kids. Giving, anytime you can give, to scholarships or things that help our people. One of the things that I've done personally, our family, I had a brother who passed away right before he graduated law school, but he was the first Ute tribal member to go to law school. And, he passed away shortly before graduating, but we have a scholarship in his name, the David Aropine Cuch Scholarship for Native Americans attending law school. Setting up endowments, setting up, programs, that benefit, tribal kids, so that they can know that they have, a future. Enrichment programs are a good thing, because, if it gives kids vision, it helps them see what's possible. The university has lots of programs that support students when they are accepted in the university. The American Indian Resource Center, for example, does a lot to support students and create community there on the campus. That's a great organization to help support. And then just, working with tribes, reaching out to tribes, and finding out what their needs are and how you can help. Building a relationship there too is another way to do it.
Well, Cam, I appreciate so much your time and your input into doing this particular podcast. I think the information you gave was incredible. And I hope that other people won't be so afraid to have similar conversations in the future, because I think it's helpful in building relationships and making our community stronger.
Yes, I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you and talk about this. It's something that's I think a lot of people still have questions about or wonder about. And I personally don't speak for the Ute Indian tribe. I'm not an elected official. I'm a member of the tribe, but that's, my perspective on it. I've had some history. I've worked for my tribe. I've served them. I've helped work on this relationship from that perspective, as well as an alumni and as well as an NAC member. And, I'll continue to do that.
Well, thank you again, Cam, so much. That will do it for me this go around. Until next time, go Utes.
Go Utes.